I'm Chris Newton, creator of Feed, the Vampire Mythos RPG. In 10-Minute Mythos, I prove the endless possibilities of vampire roleplaying by taking one random inspiration and using it to sketch out an original vampire mythos, all in 10 minutes. No prep, no script, just one gamer who loves a good vampire story. Wish me luck. Welcome to 10-Minute Mythos. Today I'm going to use 7th Sanctum to generate a quick story theme generator on 7th Sanctum. This will give me just a quick prompt and we'll spin out a story from there. So let's see what we get. Setting, post-apocalypse, pirate. Theme, switching of roles story. So we have a post-apocalyptic pirate story with a theme of switching roles. Okay, so first thing, post-apocalyptic pirate. This raises two obvious questions, which is what kind of pirate and what kind of apocalypse. A futuristic post-apocalypse that is sort of technological, Mad Maxy kind of thing. That's the obvious choice, but maybe it's been a little overdone. Likewise, something like a zombie apocalypse. So let's see if we can think of some kind of creative apocalypse and go from there. Vampirism could lend itself to something like a vampire apocalypse. There actually is some potential there for a situation where, like it sometimes is pointed out, that if vampires took over the world, then they would die out because there wouldn't be any blood for them to drink. That actually might be kind of a cool idea. A vampire apocalypse. So let's do that. Let's say that vampirism happened. It was a condition that originated that was sort of like a medical thing, more so than supernatural. So this is like a story that's a little more grounded. However, it unlike in most stories, proliferated just as quickly as you would expect if anyone who a vampire bites becomes a vampire. With the result that it quickly spread so fast that there wasn't enough food supply to support the vampire population. It became increasingly desperate, lost all control and all moderation with feeding, and basically vampirism became almost 100%. It was an apocalypse such that because humans couldn't, the vampires were so hungry and so overpopulated that if they tried to have a community anywhere, that vampires would come and prey on any assembly of humans. So many humans still exist, but they're scattered in small communities that have to focus pretty much on hiding any effort to come to public attention or organize, because vampires in this story, let's say, can mostly pass for human. Perhaps they have a pretty minor tell, so that there's a way to tell vampires apart, but it's easy to lose them in a crowd. They can slip into any kind of human community. So actually this provides us a really good way to have an ongoing serious apocalypse that humanity can't really get up from, because any attempt to assemble results in wolves in the fold, unless they can find some way to detect and kill vampires very easily. I'm going to suggest right off the bat, vampires in this story should have the sort of traditional mist form ability. It's an extremely versatile, powerful ability, especially in a context like this. I think it would go a long way toward not having humans come up with a sort of zombie apocalypse thing where it's an initial, surge against the walls of civilization, but then at a certain point, humans, with their superior numbers and great technology, can easily take out the zombies. This vampire apocalypse wouldn't be like that. The mist form essentially makes it so that it is more or less impossible for humans to wipe out vampires in that way. We could perhaps give vampires special weapons with their traits that allow them to fight each other more effectively. And they could have some particular weaknesses as well. I think what would be good here is to maybe have hunger should play a central role in this, because it is a post-apocalyptic story. So we'll make blood scarce, and because humans are really hard to find, so hunting would be a big deal in this game. Like, this would be a campaign-driving thing. Like, as you go through the wastes of the city, there are no humans. You have to specifically track them down and invade their strongholds, or steal stores of captive humans from other vampire communities, which are much more common to come across than human ones. So blood would be very, very scarce here. And this would not be like long post-apocalypse so that humans are legend or anything like that. It would just be that humans have gone mostly underground. Human civilization is pretty much broken. So they're still around. It's not like going to be the quest for the one remaining person, because then you've got no feeding, you've really got no vampire story. But they're hard to find. They're hard to hunt. And there would be great stretches of land where human civilization just doesn't exist anymore, which would be sort of like no man's land. Vampires have no reason to want to go fight each other in the middle of an area with no blood in it. Yes, they've got this mist form. They've got a subtle tell, perhaps something like... I like the idea of maybe doing something with the eyes, like have eye color be the tell, because then what you could do is have a harsh environment, with human structures kind of crumbling, and perhaps a lot of people wear the eye protection. And actually, you could have a return of the old thing about the salute being a way to make sure that you're not facing an enemy. It would be customary among humans to take your goggles up, take your hat off, let us see your eyes, so that we don't accidentally let a vampire into the fold. And that would also permit, again, so you could easily miss one in a crowd, but then trying to enter a human community, there would be a challenge. What I was saying about blood. Blood is rare. If you're out, then you can't use your vampiric abilities. I think that would be a really good thing to add. It's not in the base feed rules, but you could easily add it as a special rule, and that would really help your theme out, because it would mean that you're very vulnerable to being killed if you run out of blood, because you can't take your mist form. All your normal protections from mundane humans are kind of gone. So basically, you play vampires who are roaming the wastes of a broken human civilization, seeking the now elusive human communities to drink their blood, which you desperately need, but have a hard time getting because humans are hiding and vampires are many. Vampires are almost unkillable by humans until they're starving, because they can turn to mist in many cases, and they have other abilities, like perhaps some of them can sink into the ground. However, they can be killed. They can be burned, and then perhaps I actually like the idea. Maybe in this case, stakes don't work, but fire is very effective. Other than that, perhaps vampires are very sturdy. Basically they, if you shoot them to pieces, then the blood it would take to get their body back into shape, it doesn't really happen, but they do stay alive, and they might be able to come back. So they're basically ultimately you have to burn them. But again, the mist prevents that from happening until they're incapacitated anyway. Yes, and in fact, what actually would be cool is maybe if they turn to a mist when they sustain a certain amount of damage. That way you could make it a base ability rather than having it be a trait. And in that way, you can't just drop bombs on vampires or whatever. You really do need the fire. So your pirates. So this raises another possibility. What you could do is you could have part of the story profile be, what kind of vampires are we? Vampires have now kind of gotten into bands together, who have different means of sustenance. You can make yourself a little atlas of different places in the world and how vampires tend to hunt. Some places it's a free-for-all. They roam through the wild. They hunt humans who are just trying to hide in the bush and stay alive. In other situations, you have places where you've got vampires who are like bands of pirates, and what they do is essentially they try to waylay other vampires who are keeping stocks of humans and steal them. Particularly because let's say that maybe breeding stock is a little bit grim, but basically a small community. There would be vampires who are shepherding towns of humans, whole communities that can reproduce to try to keep themselves a food supply. And so one of the things you can do is have a group that is trying to free those humans and maybe snatch some of them to feed on, but keep a power base from being established. So that's a possible idea. The other thing you could do is you could have vampires who feed on other vampires. You could say this is possible, but it's zero sum. You have to feed on blood that's been taken by them from somebody. So it's not a long-term solution, but if you can find somebody who's living high on the hog and then go feed on them and take all this stolen blood for yourself or for your pack, then you can survive without having to hunt humans at all. But that is definitely, again, it's zero sum. Somebody has to get hunted somewhere along the line. So this is a high-risk lifestyle. You're fighting powerful vampires, too, if they've managed to feed well. So basically part of the story profile would be, what kind of band are we, what kind of pack are we, and how do we hunt? And the idea would be either we're going to go after the humans being kept by others, or we're going to go after vampires themselves. We're going to be like apex predators in this environment. The theme, the switching of roles story. Here's what I like. Humans are trying to find ways to fight back. And as a result, they have begun developing the ability to hunt. They're finding ways to scrape together technology to hunt vampires. And so they're beginning to fight back in a way they haven't since the apocalypse, which we would say is, maybe like a couple of decades ago at this point. And we'd have to say the apocalypse was pretty catastrophic. Like, this vampirism spread very quickly. Like, in less than a year, it was 50% of the population was vampires. Like, super, super severe. And vampires, we'll say, can't brave the sun, really. Without, it would be nice for them to be able to go outside, actually, at least a little bit, because otherwise it'd be too easy for humans to hunt them. So actually scratch that. Let's say that these vampires can go out in the sun, but they're prone to get burned, and thus they have they tend to wear like distinctive dress where they cover themselves very thoroughly. So I guess my time is up, but that's the basic idea. It's post-apocalypse, and I just briefly touched on the switching of roles idea, which is that humans are now like the hidden predators who are seeking ways to hunt down vampires, to kind of pull them away from the pack and kill them, and so you have to be careful. And they portray themselves as helpless, and they come after you very much like the vampire in the traditional vampire story. I feel like there's so much to this idea that I actually barely just touched on an idea, just kind of started working it out. But I think it's pretty promising, actually, and sounds like it could be fun. So there you have it, 10-minute Mythos.